do a little old school with the B&K 1076. Welcome back to part 2 of the 1949 Admiral Restore. Alright, let's get started this morning. First we're going to check the tubes. That's the tube tester I use. Precision, it's an old one. Precision 612, but it works fine for what I'm doing. Just finished testing all the tubes and they're all good. Usually what I find on most of these old sets. A few times I've had some bad tubes, but very seldom. Have my light out so I can see what I'm doing. Here's my high voltage caps, solder, side cutters. So we're just going to tack these in temporarily to see if we make any improvements. I have some of these that I've used in the past. I already have hooks been on the end of them. Easier to put in, so we'll use them. Well, no luck after changing the high voltage caps. I did determine that I have no horizontal sweep. None of the controls on the back for horizontal frequency or size or centering were doing anything, while the verticals were changing the image on the screen. So went right to the horizontal oscillator circuit, 6SN7. And this voltage on pin 4 is supposed to be negative 22 to negative 32 volts, and it was around 150. Pretty much the same as on pin 5. So I knew the oscillator wasn't running. And tracing it back, this transformer was fine. This transformer, this winding is open. The brown lead goes to ground. Yellow lead comes back to the tube. And that should be approximately 200 ohms. I pulled the transformer out. I've already peeled some of the cover off of this side. So I'm going to put it under the magnifying glass and carefully peel back this and see if I can repair this open winding. Okay, we're looking through the magnifier. When I peeled this outer layer back, carefully peeled it back, that lead fell off. The wire is right there. So we're going to reattach this wire, and maybe that will fix this transformer. First, I super glued the yellow wire to the transformer, running it right along that wire that comes up from the winding. And now we have it up here where I can tack it on. And I also super glued the brown wire to keep it in position. We don't want to break it. And once this is attached good, then I'll put some tape over these just to hold them a little better. Got the wire attached back. So now let's see if we accomplished anything. There's a winding. We got the yellow and the brown. Look at that, 206 ohms. check the other winding, which is a red and the blue, and it's 265, 266. So we dodged a bullet there. Now this super glue, it has dried, and that yellow lead is glued against the core of the transformer and the brown one. I've got both of them super glued. I may run some more tape around there just to be sure, but I think we got it. Alright, everything's hooked back up. So let's hope for some improvements. That's a lot better. Our horizontal controls are working now. And now on pin 4, that oscillator tube, we have negative 37 volts. That's more like it. Really feel fortunate that I was able to repair that transformer. That might have been a hard part to obtain if it wasn't repairable. Let's check our high voltage. Yeah, we got almost 5,000, so much better. That should be enough to make it work. Still got a pretty loud buzz there in the speaker. That's not helping matters. I had to go ahead and bridge a couple of filter caps in just temporarily. Had a major hum and a bar running through the picture, so just have those clipped in temporarily while we're doing some troubleshooting. We do have a picture. Not a very good picture, but we do have an image there. So I've already started changing some of these paper caps, specifically those two that they had changed, the red ones. They were the wrong value also. We got them out. And one more spray that was probably original. I'm going to continue on into deflection circuits, which is probably got 3, 4, 5, 6. There's about 6 more paper caps, looks like. Now there's another one, 7. We're going to change all of those, and then we'll see if we make any improvement. And I've been cleaning up these paper caps. Cut the leads off, have them looking better. And I've changed all of these resistors in this focus network. All new. And we have a couple of more right here that go back to the vertical circuit. We'll go back to pin 5 and pin 2. These two. And now focus is working. So now that we're working pretty well, I'll go ahead and change these paper caps, the ones that are left. And then we need to address this electrolytic right here. I just have one section of it bridged, and it seems to be working okay. The other section's got, it's a 3-section. The other 2 seem to be working okay, but we'll put 3 new ones in. I'll probably just mount them maybe on a terminal strip. Leave the cap attached to the top of the chassis. And on these high voltage caps, I would really like to use those old caps and restuff them, but on the other hand, we have replacement paper caps that don't really match the set, so why bother? What I'll probably do is clean these connections up on the ones that I've put in and make them look a little better, and we'll just hang on to the old paper caps, the 6 kV ones. Maybe put them in a bag, keep them with the set in case in the future we decide to restuff or someone else wants to if they end up with this set. All the paper caps replaced except for that one. I just noticed it. But we got all of these paper caps cleaned up. We've got the high voltage caps positioned correctly. Probably put a little Corona dope on these connections here because there is high voltage on these ends. Mounted a terminal strip I'm going to. I've got to mount it. But I have all 3 caps in the terminal strip. Everything's hooked up. And we just left the old cap in. It's right there. There's no connections to it. And we have one more electrolytic. This fella right here, he was mounted in this clip like that. And look at the insulation on the wires. Brittle and old. So what we did there, it had 2 connections. One was right here as a 50 mic at 150 volt, and I just mounted a smaller one right there. Positive lead, we got a ground lug right there, goes to the chassis. And then the other one is an 80 mic, 150 volt. And it went to the audio output tube right there, and we just connected it and mounted it to the ground lug. So that took care of those. And that's channel 6 on the blonder tongue modulator. Kind of hard to see if it's small too. There we go. A little better. Let me hook up the SynCore analyzer and we'll get a test pattern. We'll show you what it looks like. We have the VG91 SynCore on channel 3. So let's see what we get. And there's our window circle. Pretty uniform. We haven't done any major adjustments, just we played with them a little, but nothing major. Horizontal size, horizontal hold, vertical centering, horizontal centering, and focus. Let's do a little old school with the B&K 1076. What technicians used back when they worked on sets like this. Here's a good example of these 7JP4s. I even know the emission on this tube checked good on the CRT tester. They still work better in a darkened room. And we're not super dark in here. I mean, I have lights on the other side of the room. But that's just the way you watch these in a subdued lighting. Proportions aren't perfect, but not too bad. Well, the set seems to be working pretty well, but before I call this chassis completed, I'm going to do some resistor checks. Usually on these older sets, these bias resistors, like we got 282 ohms here on the first IF and on the second IF, and then we have 150 ohm on the third IF. I want to check those because usually they drift up in value, and I'll just do some checking on some more of these resistors. Usually these are okay down in this circuit. However, I did find that 2.2 meg that was causing a vertical height problem. Resistors that were out of tolerance, really what I expected. These bias resistors, it's 82 ohm. Two of those, they were checking around 150 each. This 150 was checking over 300 on the third IF tube. Then we had 1000 ohm here, it's checking 1400. And finally this 33 ohm checks 60. Now I could have went through here and checked every resistor. I'm sure all of them have drifted high, but when you get up past 1000 ohm, they're not going to make that much difference in the way the set performs. This 1000 ohm, I didn't really see any difference in the picture or the way the way the picture looked. Now I'm going to check one more right here, this 82 ohm on the audio IF tube. Again, that's the old 6AU6 pin 7, like the video IF tubes are. I'll check it, and if it's drifted high, I'll go ahead and change it, but I'm pretty much through with the resistors. And here's that 82 ohm in the sound IF, on the sound IF tube. And it's checking 91, so that one's, we're not going to change it. There's no reason to, no farther off than that is. I'm going to do one more thing to the chassis. A lot of these older electrostatic sets, you'll notice that they'll get retrace lines in the picture. If you keep the brightness turned down, you can kind of eliminate them, but then the picture is not bright enough. So if you turn the brightness up to where it's a normal picture, you'll see little white retrace lines. And here's the fix for that. On a 7JP4, pin 3 goes to ground. So I just clip the wire, put a 220K resistor, one side to ground, the other side connects to that wire coming from pin 3, and then we need a 250 picofarad cap that joins that junction of the resistor and the wire, and it'll connect back to pin 5 of the vertical output tube. There's contrast all the way up, and we can turn our brightness up. No retrace lines. And here's a look at the modification. I did have to put an extension on that wire going to pin 3 of the CRT, and I just ran it through a hole here in the chassis. So that's this wire right here. That connects to the junction of that resistor and that cap. Resistor goes over here to ground. The cap goes to pin 5 right here to the vertical output tube. It's a real simple fix, and it makes the set a whole lot more enjoyable to watch because you can control the brightness and turn it up as bright as you want, and you won't get those retrace lines. There's all of our bad parts. If I counted correctly, there's 29 caps, 14 resistors, and that's not counting the 3-section cap that I left on the chassis. So we used 3 separate caps and put it on a terminal strip. So actually 32 caps, 14 resistors. But if you want these old sets to work correctly, this is what you have to do. A lot of parts to change. Next, we'll begin to clean the chassis. Don't think it's going to need a lot. Dust more than anything else, but I'm going to remove the tubes. We'll take this shield off of the high voltage section. Just give it a good cleaning. This high voltage shield has 3, 4, 5 screws that hold this on. Usually there's some missing. No different here. We've taken out 3. That's all that's in the sides. I think we take this screw out of the top. It'll come right off. So I have to dig up some screws for that. You want to make sure you put all those screws back in that shield, because it's a shield. It needs to be tight, and the screws holes are there for a purpose. That's to put a screw in. So make sure we put all of them back. Now that's how clean the chassis was, and it was new. Very little dust got in there. Don't have to go overboard in cleaning this. I'm just using a paintbrush. Clean the dust off first, and then paper towel and some Windex. That's clean enough for me. And as I pull these tubes out and put them back in, I'll wipe them off too. That's a General Motors tube there. And here's proof that this was a 49 model set. 28th, probably week of 49. Pretty faint, but that's what it says. And here on the back, there's a serial number. 46666. Made in USA. We're getting it cleaner. It's not going to be sparkling and shiny, but it looks a lot better. Cleaned the CRT off and got it all mounted back, tightened down. Playing really well. And I put some Corona dope on those high voltage connections that I mentioned earlier. So chassis is finished. On to the cabinet. That'll wrap up part 2 on the Admiral Restore. We'll see you in part 3 when we start doing cabinet work and get this set finished up. Well, we hope you enjoyed the video. And if you did, how about giving us a like and subscribing to our channel? Thanks.